From the campus of the University of Kentucky, you're listening to Behind the Blue. I'm Cody Kaiser with UK Strategic Communications. Today's episode is another part of The Business of UK, a recurring series within Behind the Blue designed to take a closer look at the systems, strategies, and partnerships that keep a modern university and academic medical center moving forward. The Business of UK is a chance to pull back the curtain on how major decisions are made, why certain partnerships take place, and how the work behind the scenes supports our mission to serve the Commonwealth. Each installment will take one topic and unpack how it works, why it matters, and what it means for the people we serve across Kentucky. If you'd like to know more about the Business of UK, email your questions or topic suggestions to businessofuk@uky.edu. With that, I'll turn it over to our Executive Vice President for Finance and Administration and Co-EVP for Health Affairs, Dr. Eric Monday.
This is Eric Monday. I serve as the Executive Vice President for Finance Administration and Co-Executive Vice President for Health Affairs at UK, and thanks for joining us. The purpose of this podcast is to dig a little deeper into the business issues of UK. Today, we're going to discuss the business relationship between UK and JMI Sports. We are joined by Paul Archey, the president of JMI Sports. Paul, thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Paul, you before we get to the deal points, though, I want you to share with the folks about your background. Maybe from the days of growing up to Major League Baseball and then back home. So can you share a little bit with us about that?
Would love to. It's been just a great journey. First, you mentioned my hometown, Greenup. Grew up Kentucky, town of 1,000 people, which that sign has been unchanged for the last since I've been alive. But grew up in Greenup, Kentucky, where that's where my fandom for the University of Kentucky started. Right, as a young boy, just like everyone else in the state of Kentucky, dreaming of playing for the University of Kentucky, basketball or football, baseball, whatever. I remember really that was probably that and the Cincinnati Reds were, as a young kid, were my first connection to sports. And what I remember vividly was at the house of back in the days when Dan Issel was playing for the University of Kentucky basketball. My dad asking me to go outside as a young boy and turn the antenna so we'd get better reception for the game because we could only get 2 channels back then. But no, remember that just vividly growing up and at a young age and watching Kentucky sports. I grew up in a town that also where 2 other people from who have been just at the forefront, really, of multimedia rights and the connection to UK. Jim Host, from Ashland, and Tom Stoltz, also from Greenup. So the 3 of us who've been connected to this, for a long time, grew up within 12 to 15 miles of each other. In fact, my father and Jim Host played American Legion baseball together. So a lot of history there. But being from a small town is where my fandom was. The roots are. Sports were just a big part of my life. Played 3 sports in high school: basketball, baseball, and track. And went on to play baseball down the road at Georgetown College, where I played there and graduated before going on to a professional career in business, where I started my career at General Electric and then moved on grad school at the University of Massachusetts, and then where I've spent most of my career at Major League Baseball for over 25 years.
What brought you back from Major League Baseball to work for JMI Sports?
It's a great question. It wasn't a pay raise. No, I'm from Kentucky. My wife's from Kentucky. My wife, Dina, who grew up in Jackson, Kentucky, Breathitt County. We met at Georgetown College. She's the one who actually went to New York first and went to grad school at Columbia University at Teachers College. And, I just, luckily and coincidentally ended up back there. And then we made that Connecticut and New York our home for the next 27 years, raised our kids there. But what brought us back? Never thought I would be coming back. That opportunity, I didn't really understand at that point this world. Didn't know a lot about it, but the call came. I remember when the call came, Tom Stoltz calling me and saying, hey, we just won the rights to the University of Kentucky, and we want you to come join us, come back. And it was my youngest son's senior year of high school, and he had just won a big Turkey Bowl football game against their biggest rival. We had all kinds of friends and relatives at the house. I'm like, oh, Tom, I'll have to call you back. I'm not really, I don't know how that's going to work. What brought us back was we're Kentuckians, and the opportunity for me to actually, and I've been very lucky, right, and to be able to work for two brands that were just so important to me personally. Being Major League Baseball and baseball, and the University of Kentucky. So, that's why we came back.
So sometimes we're asked at the university why we have made a loan to the athletics department, why we are investing, into our athletics department. And I think the story you just shared is this great evidence of community connectiveness, wanting to come back, the fandom term that you're using. And just as another reason, when you think about the heartbeat of our citizens, where you're in Eastern or Western, North or South or wherever, it's UK athletics for so many of them. And it sounds like that's what it was for you.
It absolutely was. In fact, the conversation, I was probably, when I first heard about it, wasn't all that interested. But then I had two things help turn me. I had a conversation with Tom Stoltz, and the conversation wasn't about coming here as a career move, professionally. I was at a place in my life where I could consider doing some things differently. It was about how we could make a difference in Kentucky and how we could really make a difference here. And that was very different than anything I'd ever heard at that point. I was, again, at a point in my career where I'd had some conversations with people about joining them to do different things, but I thought I had the best job in all of sports. I still think maybe that was the best job in all of sports that I had. But that conversation was very different. And then I sat down with Tom and Eric Judson, who's our co-founder and CEO, and I heard the passion in Eric's, and Eric, and I heard his passion about college sports, but also about what he wanted this company to be, and to serve, the universities and athletics, and to have transparency. So some things that really resonated, and so the vision that they had was really what drew me here with them. And by the way, the University of Kentucky was the first property and only property that we had at that time. But and I also had knowing those two, but also John Moores, who I knew from baseball. He owned the San Diego Padres, and knowing what John was about and how he ran the Padres were all things that drew me to the company.
And he's the JM, right?
He's the JM in JMI Sports. Yes, but just a tremendous character, and someone that gave me great comfort with how they wanted to approach the business.
And so let's stay in this timeline of you coming here. And so the University of Kentucky puts out an RFP, as we do for all of our major services. It's called a request for proposal. It's a public document. It goes out to the market through our procurement office, and then we receive, you lay out various terms and conditions, what we're looking for, what are our program, what are our principles. We do that, and then we get responses, and we got several responses. In the end, the university chooses, JMI Sports. And I think, Paul, we're doing this little series, and I got this little whiteboard I like, but, we're doing this little series, and Cody and I, in the first part of this series, The Business of UK, we talked about TRIP. And I think about, our relationship all the way back. We've been in together a little bit more than 10 years. So we did extend it, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But the term of that relationship goes to 2040. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the return. About 80% comes to the university. The investment, I think sometimes we forget. But one of the defining elements of why JMI Sports won this business in a competitive process was the investment of $30 million into a new baseball stadium. And as I talk with the listeners in the first episode of this podcast series, the program and principles are what drives us. And what we looked at is we wanted one partner, we wanted all rights, not just the athletic rights, but the university rights. We wanted a new baseball stadium. Is someone going to be in a situation to provide that? And we wanted to go get new revenue. And so, not to stay back 10 years ago, but maybe we start coming to where we are now. But, share with me, Paul, some of the things and how you think about whether it's program or principles or benefits of this partnership.
Yeah, well, and I love that you have the whiteboard. It's definitely on brand. But just quickly looking at that in term, through 2040, and I know that it's been talked about by some media, like, oh wow, that's a long deal. Well, when you have successful partnerships, you tend to want to stay with those that you feel like that you are where you're moving the ball. I mean, the CBS and the NFL have been together for 70 years. The Olympics and NBC over 50 years. ESPN and baseball over 35 years. So, that's not, and it wasn't 125 year. It was, a couple of extensions. So I think term's important, and the reason why we're going through 2040 is because we've found something that works, right? I think the partnership that we're very much aligned. And when you go down and talk about, the principles, and I think that's where we probably had the most alignment. I wasn't here when you chose the University of Kentucky, but obviously know enough about it now. That partnership, that you talk about, having that partner, you wanted for us to be an extension of you, of the University of Kentucky. Well, on the other hand, and this is how we approach partnerships now, because now we've learned the partnerships that work best are those that see us as a partner, not a vendor, right?
Yeah.
Who see us as a commercial partner, so that we're not just talking to you about MMR rights. We're talking to you about, any need that you have, and we're not pushing, necessarily other elements or other, verticals your way, but we're there to be your partner and to help you what's right for the University of Kentucky, such as when we got into some facility development. But the other things that you've touched on there, one of our principles is transparency as well. It may surprise you, may not surprise you, but that wasn't, and it surprised me when I got into this business, that not all partners are transparent. They were treated as vendors, but a lot of the partners in this business hold the contracts, don't really share information, but a lot of that's mutual. A lot of athletic departments didn't want that information. They just, you go run that business and write us a check and we'll go on. That's not what works for us. That's not, when we look for a partner now, we will be transparent. That's a fundamental principle that we have, but we also want that communication to go both ways, because that's what works best in that space. Another key component of and I'm sure why you chose JMI Sports is you wanted a partner that was UK centric, a customized approach, one that could be customized, innovative, that suited Kentucky, because what's right for Kentucky may not be right for another school, whether it's private, public, SEC, Big East. So we pride ourselves on that, on being customized, innovative, that we have shared values that puts Kentucky first. And then finally, and probably the most important element in all of that, and you pointed to on the upfront investment, but overall, is revenue growth.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely proud to sit here and talk to you and doesn't get reported enough. I mean, the University of Kentucky is one of the top multimedia rights school properties in the country. It's a top 5 by any measure, number 1 in many of those verticals. But it is when you think about this relationship, it's grown by over 300% since we took it over in 10 years ago. We took Rupp Arena over 5-6 years ago. Can't remember the exact date, but I know that's grown by 50%. The revenue. So
that's great.
That's good for the University of Kentucky.
Sure.
And the resources you have for your athletic teams to be successful, student engagement, fan engagement, just more resources.
I think about one of the reasons why I think we've had so much success is it dates back to a name you used earlier, and Jim Host, and I think Tom Stoltz as well. And I think we have to recognize, Jim and Mr. Host and what he has done for Kentucky. I think about all of our other relationships. I cannot think of a partnership where you have 3 Kentuckians, Mr. Host, for building the category and the business for all of us, not just University of Kentucky. Then you got Tom Stoltz. He's a seminal reason why you won this business a little bit more than 10 years ago. And then the reason why we've extended the business is because of you and the team of Judson and you and so many others. So I just think that's so awesome. And so many times we're talking about how do we have Kentuckians remain in Kentucky or come back to Kentucky. And this is just a great evidence of that.
And I know you stay in touch with Jim. In fact, I had to cancel a breakfast with him tomorrow. So if you're listening, Jim, and still stay in touch and try to have meetings with Jim. Every couple of weeks we have it on the calendar. Every two weeks, and get something out of it every time. Yes. He's so passionate about the state of Kentucky, the University of Kentucky. There's no one that's had more experience across both of those than him. And the fact that he still cares so much, I get something out of every single breakfast. I also love giving him a hard time, like poking him a little bit. He knows that. But it is just a phenomenal resource. And the fact, there's a reason why I think that the way we run our business here, that thread of Kentucky and the fact that we, like I said, we grew up all in the same area makes it even, I guess, maybe more satisfying. But Eric, that goes to the entire team here, not just the 3 of us. Obviously, have that connection. We have one of the most robust, largest teams here, doing more things. But the entire team, they have so much experience and are good at what they do, most of which almost have the same type of Kentucky roots. I mean, we have one person on our team, Kim Ramsey, who she's probably going to kill me for saying this, but she worked for Kaywood Ledford. She's been at this property, for a number of decades since then. Also has so much history. But they love this university, they love UK athletics, and they all have a story or a history similar to mine.
That's awesome, Paul, and I'm enjoying this conversation. I want to drop back to this return. We talk about 80% return to the university, and let's fast forward to this summer. So we're summer of 2025, talking about what's next. In a future episode, we're going to talk with Mitch Barnhart and you about BBNIL and name, image, and likeness. We have revenue share. We have these changes in the athletics domain of American higher education in the last 5 to 10 years than maybe any other time in our history. So we engage in conversations to look at, we have what was called a minimum guarantee. So for that first 10 years of the contract, there was a minimum amount of money that JMI paid to the University of Kentucky that went to our athletics department. Those are wonderful, and they give you some consistency and some ability to plan for. But what happens in a lot of those cases, if you're achieving that, the next increment of dollars goes to the partner for taking that risk. And so what happens is there, and one of the key things of any partnership, I think, is the term alignment of interest. And I think it's very important that in this relationship, it wasn't the university or athletics that came to JMI Sports and said, hey, let's think about a different revenue share. It was our partner, and it was our partner coming and say, hey, can we align our interest even more deeply? So talk about that, and then if you could, explain a little bit of what we mean when we say 80-20.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and you mentioned about that we came to you with the idea of 80-20, which we did, but because of such a changing landscape in college athletics, and NIL being a part of that, and how we wanted to look at revenues, the stress and the need of athletic departments to drive more revenue and have it stick to them, made it. We had talked about that actually for a while, but then it started to bubble up. Yeah, that's a better way to approach this business together as partners. But let's go back to your question of just very basic. What is the rev share? 80-20. What does that mean? Simply, it means that the University of Kentucky gets 80% of every net dollar, and JMI Sports gets 20%. So there's still a guarantee, there's still a floor, and if something happened and something catastrophic, that guarantee still puts you, in the top of the top half of the SEC. But this is about that 80% of more revenue sticking to the University of Kentucky. So simply, that's what it is. We look at all revenue equally, and as we grow, it's also not just how you grow your revenues; it's looking at cost. How can we be more efficient with some of our costs? So, dollar saved or expense saved, dollar earned, whatever that saying is. But as we cut costs, again, that's 80 cents on the dollar to the University of Kentucky. So you mentioned that the single biggest reason in my mind to do that is that it aligned our interest even more. Because in the old model, as we grow our revenues, and you see all the things in college athletics right now, new assets, jersey patches, logos on field, new facility developments. In the old model, that was really more advantageous to JMI Sports, your partner.
Sure.
Because we're paying you a guarantee and keeping 100% of revenue until we hit a threshold. So, you may ask, well, why did you change it? Well, the reason why we changed it is because of that alignment of interest. Because if we're together on and growing the revenues, that's going to make the University of Kentucky more successful, and we grow the pie.
Well said. I want to go to maybe one last conversation before we wrap this up and talk a little bit about, you said earlier that the University of Kentucky was JMI Sports' first partner. What's happened since then for JMI Sports?
Well, we're not the same company we were in 2015, for sure. And I kind of like to look at it in two parts, because we're in that decade of where COVID was right in the middle. But the University of Kentucky was the first partner. We had a lot of success here, but shortly thereafter, we started to grow and bring on other partners, and we're really kind of 0 to 60 out of the gate after that. We brought on 5 or 6 new partners over the next 3 or 4 years. Then COVID hits, right? COVID comes, and for 2 years, the industry, we had some we have I'll go into who we represent in just a second, but you have conferences. We have some conferences like the Ivy League didn't play. We have no fans coming to games. So the industry kind of hit the pause button. And then after COVID, which I would say, we're in now, we kind of went back at it, 0 to 60. But where we sit now is we have, just over 20 partners. We're still a boutique type firm, but I say boutique not in the kind of partners we have, but boutique in that it's very customized, to those partners. But the University of Kentucky, I mentioned the Ivy League just shortly with conferences. So we have properties and conferences both, which gives us a broad perspective of how it works on both sides. But on the property side, our power for conferences such as the University of Utah, UCLA, University of Pittsburgh, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Yeah. The other perspective, the University of Georgia is a partnership with Learfield. So, we're the only one in the space really that works with some competitors in that sense. So we know how they operate, but that's been a really successful partnership for us at University of Georgia. Notre Dame is a partnership with Legends. Northwestern, who's a new property that we just added, is also a partnership with Legends. So, we have I think a unique perspective in the space with having big partners. As I said, University of Kentucky is at the very top of that. But having, from all conferences, the Big Ten, the SEC, we have two from the Big Ten, one from the Big 12 being Utah, Notre Dame, Pitt, the ACC, Kentucky, Georgia, SEC. We also have some smaller properties, Harvard, Columbia, Penn in the Northeast. We have the Ivy League as a conference as a whole, Patriot League, the Atlantic 10, the MAC, Mid-American Conference, that we're familiar with. So,
sure.
And Mountain West, don't want to leave them out. But it gives us a really, I think, a unique perspective. And I also want to just, on the college property side, San Diego State, but we have a one San Diego strategy where we have 3 schools in San Diego. We've been busy.
That's awesome. That sounds great. As we think about the business of UK, I want to kind of come back to those key elements. And so we extended a relationship with JMI Sports for 6 more years. So from a term standpoint, got about 15 years left on that term, a little bit less now. The return, quite simple, right? After we take some direct expenses, 80% comes to the University of Kentucky. That goes to the athletics department. 20% stays with JMI Sports. We have that alignment of interest. And when we think about that investment you made, 10 years ago, we got a baseball stadium that candidly we would not have been able to build without that investment. And that program and principles, and what are the outcomes of this? We know by moving from that guarantee to 80-20, we project a minimum of $50 million in new net dollars in value out of this agreement. That is significant. That is not a small number in the course of what we're talking about. We're talking about a 15-year number that's well in excess of $460, give or take a few $1 million.
And not capped.
And there's no cap. So as things continue to evolve, and as we talk more on the Business of UK podcast series, we'll have Paul back at some point to dig into some other elements of this. But Paul, thank you for being here today. I just want to kind of wrap us up here. We request your feedback and look forward to incorporating this great information into future podcasts. Please email us at businessofuk@uky.edu. Look forward to connecting with you on the next time together. We're going to be discussing BBNIL and the name, image, and likeness strategy for UK athletics and the role JMI Sports is playing in achieving those goals and objectives. And let's not forget, we're talking about the goals and objectives for our student athletes and its athletics department. Mitch Barnhart, our UK athletics director, will join us, as well as Paul. And I just want to tell you, thank you for joining us today. Our focus, our North Star, Why we do what we do is because we're advancing Kentucky in all that we do. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Blue. Behind the Blue is a joint production of the University of Kentucky and UK Healthcare. For more stories about UK and UK healthcare, visit uknow.uky.edu.